Welcome to Sikhcast, brought to you by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.
Welcome to Vaisakhi Countdown, a series highlighting individual experiences and relationships that people hold with Vaisakhi. Coming from diverse backgrounds, countries, and experiences, our team is passionate about sharing their connection to Vaisakhi and its resonance in their lives. Follow along as each team member highlights their story of what Vaisakhi means to them. Today, you will hear from Jujhaar Singh, who serves on the Sikhi board.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to the Sikh Research Institute's Countdown to Vaisakhi, Day 5. My name is Jujhaar Singh. I'm on the Board of Directors for Sikhi. And today I want to talk to you about my reflections of Vaisakhi and growth and specifically through the lens of Basant Ki Var. Let's talk about Basant as a whole. Basant is a rag that's commonly sung in the blossoming season, in the spring season, when things are growing, it's becoming greener, the harvest season as well, and Vaisakhi falls in Basant. And the rag is so beautiful because it talks about growth and becoming green, and common words are hari or har or maulya, and I'm going to reference some other shabads from Basant. But if we look at Basant Ki Var, the first body talks about how one grows. So the first line is Har ka naam te aaye ke ho harya pai. And I think this line is really beautiful because it says Har in this case, first of all, Har is the most common word in Guru Granth Sahib. It can refer to any number of things, but in this case it's referring to Ik Onkar. So Har ka naam, naam literally means name, but it also means identification or what something stands for. When you call someone by their name, it's not just the name itself, it's their being. So Har ka naam is the essence of Ik Onkar. So Har ka naam te aaye ke hohu harya pai. And I think it's really beautiful here where it talks about hohu harya pai. Harya means to become green. And in this case, it talks about becoming green through growth, through the growth of understanding now. And I think this is a really a cool thing to talk about because each of us has our own growth to be had, and we each grow in different ways. If you look at plants, they grow under the right conditions. And some plants might need watering every week, others need watering every day. But if you give them the right conditions, they will sprout, they will flower, and they will end up achieving their full potential. And I think the same thing is true for us. In fact, if you look at Professor Puran Singh's writing in a chapter called Conduct of Life, he talks about this exact thing. He says, only one thing is needful, that the tree of the human soul should shoot upwards along its soul axis aright, from roots springing in the dark and raising its tops proudly aloft in the infinite sunshine of life. And in this essay in general, I love this essay because Professor Puran Singh talks about how for different people, growth is different things. If someone is a spendthrift and really, really cautious about spending any money and kind of a miser, for those people, sometimes it's okay for them to invest in themselves, or if someone is constantly trying to consume more and more, sometimes it's okay for them to say, I'm going to take a step back and kind of reset myself and what I think is important to me. And I think this mattered a lot to me because I see sometimes in our own communities, in my own thinking, that I feel that I always have to be correct, that making mistakes is somehow irrevocable or irreversible. And I think the first lesson from Basant Ki Var that I'd like to take is to embrace growth. Because the only way that you will grow is if you take chances, and inevitably if you make mistakes. As long as your intention is to learn from those mistakes, as long as you take those lessons and don't repeat them, I think that's how you find your soul, is the way Professor Puran Singh writes it, but that's the way you find what's right for you. And if you even look at trees, not every tree grows the same. The bonsai tree grows like this. So growth is usually not linear as well. And I think one of the beautiful things about Sikhi is that growth and becoming a better person is not reserved for people who have only done good things their whole life. If you look at the example of Sajjan Tug, for example, who literally used to take people into his house, kill them, and steal their belongings, Guru Nanak Sahib helps Sajjan Tug realize the error of his ways and become a better person. Same thing can be said for the Chali Mukte, who abandoned Guru Gobind Singh at Anandpur Sahib, or Pandey Khan, who turned against Guru Har Gobind, fought him in battle, but in the last moment asked him for forgiveness. So I think in Sikhi, sometimes we get up in concepts of purity or not wanting to make the mistakes. One thing I'd like to take this Basant and this Vaisakhi is to be okay with failure, because that's the way that growth is going to occur. And in the last line of the first Pauri, Guru Arjan Sahib, kind of clarifies this in my eyes. He says, Nanak simre ek naam, fir bahur na tai. By contemplating simar, to meditate, to understand, to kind of repeat ek naam, the naam of ek onkar, fir bahur na tai, you won't keep cycling. And a lot of people take this to mean cycles of birth and death, and that's a whole other conversation, but you can also think about it in terms of learning from your mistakes. The point of growth is that you start to break cycles that end up hurting you, and you start to create better habits. And so I think that this body reminds me to embrace growth. The second body is all about kind of the state of being when I think a Sikh is in flow. And to explain what flow is, it's kind of a psychology term that refers to when someone's challenge and their ability are matched. So people have these moments of intense clarity or intense work where their productivity is super high because they're evenly matched to the challenge that's coming their way. And Guru Arjan Sahib talks about this, in my opinion, spirit of flow in the Sikh context, where he says, Panje badde mahabali kar sacha toa, that I've been able to restrain or control my 5 vices. Rog sog submit gaye nit nawa niroa, that my rog, my diseases, my sog, my sorrows are all gone. And every day, nawa niroa, I become new. And again, this is that same idea of blossoming, where I think, when Sikhs are at their best, when I'm at my best, I wake up so excited for the next day. It doesn't matter if my back is hurting or whatever happened the night before, because I'm so ready to seize the day. And Guru Arjan Sahib talks about how this is possible. He says, "Jiste upje nanaka soi fir hoa." Jiste upje, the one that I came from, the origin, ek onkar, soi fir hoa, I have now become. And I think this is what we talk about a lot in becoming attuned with Vaheguru and attuned with the world, that the perspective is just different. And that's kind of the goal for us, is to become aligned with hukam. And, we see this in kind of the mindset of Basant. Dekh phool phool phule, ahante aagte aage, that everything is blossoming around me. And, I think all of us also look for ways to become part of something larger than ourselves. In this case, Guru Arjan Sahib is talking about becoming part of Ek Onkar. And I think there are steps to that, right? Joining the Khalsa Panth is a huge step in that process, because, each of us wants to find organizations or causes that we care about and become part of them, whether it's a job or a nonprofit or just a group of friends who work together to achieve a goal. And in Vaisakhi, I think Guru Gobind Singh started that for the Khalsa when he basically said, come be part of something larger than yourself that fights throughout history for good. And people have different relationships with Khande Ki Pol. It's a very personal relationship for everyone, including myself. But I think one thing that I have grown in is my thought process from, taking Amrit is essentially following a set of rules, to it's actually pledging my allegiance to something larger than myself, where I would be part of a group of people who throughout history have fought for rights and truth. So I think the second takeaway from Basant Ki Var that I will be taking is become part of organizations or groups that help expand your mind, that help achieve goals in life and in the world that are worth fighting for, and ultimately, hopefully, worth dying for. And kind of the last portion of Basant Ki Vaar, the last pauri or stanza, talks about kind of I think, more of a global lens on Sikhi and truth. Guru Arjan Sahib says, "Kitthon upje keh rahe, kahe mahe samave," which refers to, where are beings created, where do they stay, and where do they ultimately end up merging into? And then Jia Jant sab khasam ke kaun कीमत पावे. And Jia Jant is the beings of the world. Sab khasam ke are all part of the husband or the beloveds. We all belong to Ik Onkar. Kaun कीमत पावे is like, how can you put a price on that? Who can say how much that's worth? And then Guru Arjan Sahib says, "Kahante ayan sunan nit se pagat suhave." That the people who understand this truth of the capital T, are the ones who are beautiful. And beautiful not in the traditional sense of they look good, but beautiful in terms of like their light is radiant, is the way that I take it. And then Guru Arjan Sahib talks about where this is coming from. He says, "Sach pure gur updesya nanak sunave." Buddha is a really cool word to me in Gurbani because it means full or complete, and Guru Arjan Sahib here says, the full, complete Guru is the one who has instructed me, and I'm the one who's saying it. And of course, like all Gurus, he uses the word Nanak because there's one Jyot throughout all of our Gurus. So I think here, the idea is that when you're in the state of being, when you're in the state of being where you are able to be in tune, you can see kind of truth, the capital T, what's permanent. At the end of the day, all of us go through cycles, birth and death. There's nothing that's permanent except for that Ik Onkar. So I think this is an invitation for me and for us to really see how we can connect to not just something larger than ourselves, but the thing that is larger than ourselves, which is Ik Onkar. And kind of the questions that I would ask myself in the coming year, since Vaisakhi is kind of the start of a new year for Sikhs, is, how am I embracing growth? And what am I planting this Basant? We saw what the farmers of India have been planting, and kind of the fearlessness, how they have stood up to what they feel is unfair and unjust. So I guess what the questions that I would like to hear from you are, what are you planting this Basant? What are the growth things that you want to work on? What are the parts of the world that you want to become more involved in the groups of people? And lastly, how are you working on recognizing Ik Onkar within yourself, within others, and kind of using that grace to shape your own worldview? For any mistakes, I hope I take them as a growth opportunity. And thank you for listening and letting me share a little bit about what Vaisakhi means to me. Tune in tomorrow for the next installment in the Kantan de Vaisakhi. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
You were listening to Sikhcast by Sikh Research Institute, illuminating every path.